welcome. And honest to God, thank you for being here tonight. I'm really glad that you came out. So we're going to start with the fact that during the holidays, and I'd say thanks to Meg Senna, who sent me that little cartoon. I just thought that was fabulous. So the holiday season just adds to our stress, and having it during a pandemic just kind of lays it on there a little harder. And just to mention why it's so important to address stress when we're experiencing it is unchecked stress leads to emotional things. I mean, it's a real contributor to anxiety, to depression, and to physical issues. So dealing with stress is wonderful. So this evening we'll spend some time identifying stress in ourselves and then focus on how to manage it. But how to manage it, it's not going to be a formula, but helping you really develop what works for you, because what works for everybody doesn't work for somebody else. So first of all, I wanted to take a moment and check in. I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and kind of do a little personal inventory. How are you feeling right now? Are you having any stress in your shoulders or your neck? Are you feeling kind of twitchy, anxious? Even now as you're sitting there, are you doing your to-do list for the stuff you have to do when you get home or tomorrow? So if you answered yes to any of those, I'm glad you're here. If you said no, then congratulations, you're remarkably proactive and you're already taking care of yourself. So now, to get a start on it, I want to talk about breathing, because breathing in a mindful way is the ultimate stress buster. So to get started, we're going to start off with like stress reduction for the evening. Just sit there. If you can, now I'm short so I can't always do this, put your feet flat on the floor and kind of make yourself comfortable. Then as you pull your shoulders up, let them drop. And pull them up and let them drop. And one more time, so you're tensing, and then you're letting them relax. And now that starts to do your shoulders, and now for your neck, let your head drop forward, and roll it to one side, let it roll to the back, to the other side, and to the front, and then you can move your head back up. And those are two really good things when you start to feel tension. Most of us build a lot of tension in our necks and in our shoulders. And if you do that and you can feel, sometimes you'll do that, you'll feel a lot of stress or tension on one side. And I'd suggest you kind of do it maybe a few more times. Be gentle. This is not, you're not yanking your head one way. You don't want to pull something. But just gently kind of pull those muscles a little bit looser. And now we're going to do a little bit of breathing. So, first I'm going to explain what I'm going to do, and I'm going to explain it so that you can just sort of think about it as we start. So when I ask you to take a deep breath in, I'm going to ask you to pull a breath in. You just keep breathing normally now, and then hold it. And when I say hold it, there's two ways to hold your breath. One of them is like, you probably did this when you went swimming, right? That's not what I'm talking about. When I say hold your breath, I want you to picture your breath like a leaf floating or a butterfly. So this is going to be your image while you hold your breath. And when you let it out, try to breathe and get all of it out, like diaphragm and not just kind of chest breathing, because you can, and we tend to breathe like that when we're anxious. If you let your belly breathe more, it tends to pull a little relaxation. Okay. You ready to, oops. Okay. So we're ready. Yeah, I will jump ahead before I should. All right. So we're going to try that a couple of times. And counting, a really good way to do this is to count and breathe in for 4, and you want to get a good breath in on 4, kind of hold it for 5 to 7. Now I'm going to tell you, do this so you're not uncomfortable, and then you let it out for 8. If you can only hold it for 5, let it out for 6, but you want to exhale for longer than you inhaled. And when I tell you, like, you can do this also as square breathing. You know, I like to do this and picture in my head, because I sometimes need more to focus on than just the breathing. You can picture inhaling, holding it, kind of floating it, and letting it out. And go back to the start. And I'll tell you ahead of time, I once breathed like this and it got me through a 20-minute MRI that was really stressful. Because I'm in that little thing. So, okay, ready to start? Okay, so I'm going to ask you to breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe we'll just do out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just hold it for a moment and then in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it floating. 2, 3, 4, 5. And let it out gently. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just gonna hold it for a second and in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gentle hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, and let it all out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold it for a moment and then in. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then in. You do that, count for yourself. And when you finish your mindful breathing, you can open your eyes and just take a nice deep breath. Okay? Now, hopefully, you already feel a little more relaxed. And the beautiful part about mindful breathing is that it will drag the rest of your physiology along with it. You can do that, and a lot of people will have a practice where, and meditation does that, where you can breathe like that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And if you time it right, you're not going to be getting dizzy, and you'll find that the longer you do it, the longer you can stretch out the in and the out. And what it is you're pulling your heart rate down, you're pulling your entire physiological system down to a more relaxed and calm state. And it is the number one most useful thing you can do for yourself when you feel stressed. All right. Now, and I mentioned you can draw things. I'm going to give you cards. And I need plenty out just in case hordes of screaming thousands came tonight. And you're going to get 2 cards. The first one says just breathe. And if you want, you can write on the back of this, like those numbers, try the 4, 7, 8. But truly, those numbers are not magic. They're not mystical. And if some other number combination works for you, then that's perfect. Second, vaguely efficient. I'm going to give you a card and a pen. Oops, sorry. And these will be in a minute. You can leave it on the floor. And a little later, we have an exercise where you're going to want to write some stuff down. And this is your little card to write them down. So that's to remind you, just breathe. Now, when I say it says just breathe, that kind of has a double meaning. It means just breathe, and it means just breathe. So while you're doing this, you're not trying to do your to-do list. You're trying to just focus on your breath and feeling it in and out. And it is incredibly restorative. So, I mean, I can't tell you, and lest you think it's just I made this up, there's an incredible amount of scientific evidence that backs up the fact that controlling your breathing like this is remarkable. It actually can help in pain management, all kinds of other stuff. There we go. So now we're going to talk about aspects of the holidays in particular, and how to manage it. Now, As a reminder, because we're going to be talking about some of the stressful things, if you feel your stress level going up, and hopefully you'll pay attention to it during this evening's presentation, just take some breaths. Nobody's going to know. Honestly, nobody can tell how you're breathing. And so do this for your own self-care. So, holidays come with all kinds of demands and expectations. And no matter what, we already all have busy lives. And the holidays don't take any of that away. They just kind of add more stuff to it. So first I want to start with the family thing. Now, all the messaging and all the stuff on TV tells you that it's the perfect family gathering, right? All the stuff on TV, everything's warm and fuzzy, everybody's getting along, and of course, these perfect family messages. And everybody posts on social media all of these wonderful holiday things. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't see much on social media about the drunk relative at the party, about the arguments between people who have always argued, and somehow people think that at the holiday table they're not going to argue. That is not how it works. The stress of the holidays actually make people more likely to be difficult, more likely to relapse to some of their less, let's just say, less desirable behaviors. Okay, and then the food, right? The holidays are supposed to have wonderful food, tons of it, perfectly prepared on a gorgeous table, right, with the centerpiece and everything's perfect. Okay, I don't know about your kitchen, but that's not mine. And then snow. And you see all these things? Now, we do live in New England, but the snow is always softly falling, right? They're not showing the driveways or the walkways that you had to shovel right before somebody came and slipped and fell and they're yelling at you because you didn't do it right. The snow never seems to involve snow shoveling, unless it's an ad for Advil or something, in which case, yeah, they bring up the snow shoveling. It doesn't ever show the fact that the snow blower may not start, or the guy that's supposed to plow your driveway doesn't show up until after your company. So there's all this picture-perfect Hallmark stuff out there that is enough to make anybody stressed and anxious because your life doesn't look like that. So, right. And so next, I just want to cover, and this is where you may get a little stressed, as I cover all the stressful things. Then there's the barrage of messaging about buying and spending. Around the holidays, it's shop, buy, get the perfect gift for every single person on your list. And don't disappoint anyone. They must have that specific toy, that appliance, that electronic gadget, and then my favorite of the ads for the new car. Like, really? I don't personally know anybody that gets their spouse or their significant other, not just a car, it's always one of the really big expensive ones, and it's got that huge bow on it. Now, this is a Christmas, so this is sort of the expectation that the messaging out there gives you, that not only are you supposed to buy, spend, but you're supposed to spend buckets of money that you probably don't have. Now, I'm not going to say that you should just give somebody a mug, or God forbid a vacuum cleaner for Christmas, but there's a whole lot of space in between the mug and the Lexus for reasonable giving. And I would also like to suggest that giving up your time and love and caring is probably the most precious gift that anybody's ever going to get. But you're not going to see ads for that. But I would mention it here because it's a bit less stressful. And that it really can be very hard to ignore all those messages. You can feel you're good, and you're not going to backslide. And then you get the things on the internet. You get the email that says Best Buy all year, best price all season, and it really again pushes you. Day one, day two. I have at least 2 things that show up in my inbox every day that says, which day of the buying thing am I on? Click here to see what you should buy. It's like, I don't need it. I don't want it. And the people I know will probably go, you got me a what? So it can be sort of ignored that. The added thing is that in terms of stress, and this is post-holiday stress, if you give in to this, when those bills come in, they're overwhelming. And a lot of people who maybe struggled with paying their basic bills are now faced with almost insurmountable debt for things that they didn't need or didn't want. So here's just kind of an image of fiction. This is the Hallmark Channel or Currier and Ives. This is not the real world. And then there are the issues related to the pandemic. To me, some of this pandemic stuff reminds me of the first Jaws movie. That just when you thought it was safe to get back in the water, that music starts, and the danger is still there. We want to be back to normal. We want things to be like they've always been. We don't want to be dealing with the masks and the vaccines and the people we know who don't want to get vaccinated or wear a mask because they think this is all a bunch of hooey. And this just really adds to the pandemic stress. There are issues of isolation. People that you may not have seen in a long time that you want to see, and maybe you still can't see them because maybe they don't feel safe traveling. The pandemic, and I don't want to underestimate this, but maybe now take a nice breath, puts on a stress that most people stay unaware of. But it's that Jaws thing in the back. It's that constant do, which will push your endocrine buttons just across the board. It's a stress every time you need to go someplace, every time you need to do something. So just be kind to yourself and recognize that even if your family dinner was perfect and did look like those other pictures, that stress is still going to be there. And the other thing I'm going to just say is when people talk about how it used to be, it's really easy to idealize what life used to be like. Really easy. You know, all of a sudden somehow it's the Hallmark thing. Like, oh yeah, it was great when everybody got together, and we forget the messy stuff that happened. This pandemic, to me, is similar to the 1918-1919 flu epidemic that left scars. My grandmother remembered that to her dying day and what it was like to live through that. And there were the Great Plagues that went through Europe that completely changed economic systems, social structures. That's another presentation, and maybe it would be fun to have sometime for people to realize how drastically things that are this global can impact things. The other thing about the pandemic that I think is important is when we think about our resiliency factors, the things that help us cope with stress, that help us cope with any challenge in our lives, they're usually a whole range of things. We've got our jobs, our work, our families, our friends, our cultural and religious institutions, the things we do for fun, our hobbies. This pandemic has hit broadside every single one of the structures and things that people used to help themselves. Every single one got compromised. So if you're feeling a little like things have unraveled, it makes sense. I would say it's normal. It means, you had all of these structures. But, and I'd love to tell you that the next slide says I'm going to make all that better. I'm sorry. I can't magically make it all better. But So, now we're going to work on some strategies that work. So, the first thing I want to do is to have you all identify your own personal stressors. Okay? And today, I want to focus more on the holidays, but if you've got like a major pervasive stressor, we'll pay attention to that too. And so think about the things, and I'm going to kind of jot some of them down over here, that make you stressed, angry, sad, depressed in the holidays. And here I'm going to emphasize, this by the way is we, not you. I tend to get a little weird around the edges in the holidays, and ironically, helping work on this, working this presentation, was marvelous for reminding myself, these are your buttons. You will breathe. You will relax. So first we're going to talk about our hot buttons. So like I'll say for me, so I'll put this as stressors and buttons. Because some things just push your buttons. For me, my biggest thing is feeling like I am responsible for other people's happiness. That's responsible for others. I crossed you in the wrong spot. Good holiday. And I think this goes back to when my kids were little, that if I didn't do it all right, they were not going to have a good Christmas. And it's a hangover that I fight every year. So are there any others that you would say are good? Your hot buttons are holiday stressors.
Cleaning the house.
Cleaning the house.
And decorating.
Cleaning. Okay. Cleaning the house. 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 Cleaning the house.
And decorating.
the house, and those are kind of two separate things. Decorating the house. Yep.
How about feeling like you're the only one in your house who's actually worrying about any of it?
It's all on you.
Nobody else is paying attention or doing anything to get ready.
It's all on you. And if you don't do it, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Which may be true.
Yeah. And you know what? It may be true, but there are some ways, there are workarounds on that. Like sometimes it's that, well, no, you're right. It's all on you. And women tend to get this one dumped on them more than men. Anything else? Other holiday hot buttons?
Shopping.
Particularly for people that you don't know that well, or you don't see that often, so you don't know what kind of stuff they like, or their interests, or whatever. You know, that brother-in-law that you've barely spoken to in 20 years since they married your sister? You don't know what to do.
Maybe into mountain climbing. I'm not sure.
But you know, shopping, actually, that one is a hot button for so many reasons, because like, it's not, if you don't know that person that well, why is it you're stuck getting them a present?
Yeah.
Because you're closely related to them sometimes.
Okay, especially for some people, so it's tough, you don't know what to get.
So you think cookies are good, and it turns out he's on some kind of diet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that has happened to me. Give somebody something even, and then you find out that they don't use sugar, anything with sugar. I'm like, well, that was a fail. But on that, I relied on the fact that the thought was good.
That person can stop by my house.
One of the things is just the, it's the crowding. Extra people, extra decorations, furniture gets moved around. You have little alleyways to walk between the tree and the path. I look forward to January.
And stores too. Like, you just try to do the most basic errands, and the parking lots are jammed, the roads are jammed, the stores are jammed, they're playing some really horrible Christmas music, and you're just like, I just need to buy some milk.
And everyone is feverishly
It's crowding and crowds. Any others?
I would say, like, struggling with rectifying your meaning of what celebrating the holiday means with the people you're participating with. So, for example, I mean, somewhat related to gift giving, if there's a decided pattern in families around how gifts are given, and you'd rather just do something else that would be more meaningful, how do you lovingly participate but not be frustrated about it? And that can take a whole host of weird ways. And along with that, also just traditions in general. And people can get kind of funny about them. And we always do the such and such, whatever it is, you hate to swap for this or that, and something seemingly fun ends up getting weird, like in ways you never would expect, and then you're just like, can we not say we did?
And then someone's horrified by that. I messed with the cranberry sauce one year, and my dad's like, my mom's like, well, I really like what you did with the cranberry sauce this year. My dad was like, what did you do to the cranberry sauce? I'm like, Dad, you've been eating the cranberry sauce. Obviously, you enjoyed whatever I did. And he's like, you can't mess with the cranberry sauce. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, he's half kidding. But, like, it's that kind of thing sometimes.
So actually,
I totally can mess with the cranberry sauce. I made it.
There's two parts in what you two just shared. One of them is reconciling your vision of the holiday with everybody else's vision. Like, when I was growing up, my mom's family was French-Canadian, and it was a religious holiday. There were some gifts, but it was a #1 religious holiday. And you went to church Christmas morning before any presents were opened, because it was first and foremost that religious holiday. And for other people, it's like, that's an annoyance. Like, we don't have time to go to church. You know, so, and actually I'm going to add reconciling your vision, and that can be your vision with others. It can also be within a family. Right. Different family members.
Sure, because, I mean, you get your vision a lot of times from the influences you had growing up. So there's remembering what Christmas was like with Grandma, what Christmas was like in your house with your own family. And then you get another family when you have a significant other, and what were their grandparents' Christmases like, and what are their fond memories when they were 8, and, you know, and picking and choosing which traditions. There are too many to follow all of them.
And this is a particularly stressful issue for new couples.
Yes.
Who have yet to kind of come to any kind of balance. So that's a massive stressor for new couples. and then you added, we always.
Yep.
The always, and I put that in quotes, is because when it comes to holidays, people think that it's sacred. We always make the cranberry sauce this way. We always have blah, blah,
It
blah.
is a sacred
We have
holiday.
always done it this way, as if Moses got this on the Ten Commandments. They are engraved in stone from God above, and it's a tradition. But you buck tradition, and it's a major stressor. So so the stress of reconciling kind of what you want to do and what you think you could move forward with versus that mire of tradition. Anything else? Yeah. Go ahead. Who goes
Putting
first?
a cork in it when there's certain individuals whose thought processes are so far out from yours, what you really want to say, how can you be so stupid? But you were brought up that you don't say that.
This is all a hypothetical.
Yeah,
So,
you imagine that might be a situation. So,
But what I say is, gee, I never would have
Struggling
thought
with-
of doing it that way. If you ever hear me say that, you know what I'm really thinking is, how can you be so stupid?
right. I'm going to say struggling with people who drive you crazy. Because I think that covers a lot of that. Yes? Do I have that? Yeah. And
I'll throw in deadlines and schedules.
oh, yeah.
Christmas Day is its own deadline.
Oh, yeah.
deadline.
And Christmas Eve is a big deadline, too.
This is from a man who has to deal with deadlines all his career.
And so
Yeah,
you
but
can
sometimes
have
you get
work.
sick of deadlines. You got enough of them in other aspects of your life. You're like, oh my
Right.
gosh, like
Mhm.
now I gotta remember to pick up the turkey on Tuesday. And,
And the
Working also, there are more I found in school, there were more deadlines coming up around the holidays.
the
You
amount
had
of
to have
stuff
stuff
they
finished
pile
because
on.
it was
Yes,
Right.
teachers
Vacation.
and parents, the schools, it's like, go sign up to give the, this and
Right, and
send
there's
your
the
kid in with a buck and
holiday
get
concert.
the gift
and
card for the
special
PTO,
things.
and you're like, okay, I want to be able to help with all this, but like, something's got to give. Like,
Right.
how many hours of the day do I have? Like, I don't want to be that person that's like, oh, forget you, screw you, teachers, right? Because I appreciate the teachers, I love that, but like, I don't have time to go out and get 50 million gift cards. And it's just like, and in all of it, a lot of charity too, like, I mean, which is all really good stuff that we all want to
Right.
participate in, but it's sometimes like, the amount of stuff that all comes in the same time frame, you're like, I gotta remember to pick up this, I gotta remember to do this, I gotta bake this, I gotta sign up for this, I gotta,
And the holidays have like added up, and in case you weren't feeling enough, those emails were on dates. It's like this countdown. And then there are actually the countdowns to Christmas. In case you weren't stressing up, only 12 more days, 9 more days, and your blood pressure and your stress goes up. Yeah.
I know this is, you're not on this point right now,
They
but I have to tell you, one of our traditions, which takes a whole lot of stress on, I think.
Then
is
hold that thought.
Wait,
There are-
Things that relieve the stress is our next segment.
is it the spice
I got
bomb?
one more to add.
Okay. I just want to have people have a sense of their own and other people's, because we're going to work on antidotes next. And we have another stressor, holding antidotes. Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge too that, people have, when you're married, you have two sides of your family, and then you have to add in where's everybody located, you can get really off kilter with, sometimes at work, we're here for Thanksgiving, we're here for Christmas. Some people have it very set, it's very clear. For some people, it's not, and it can get really off kilter, and the guilt of trying to get to everybody fairly and all of that.
Yeah.
And if you have work schedules that are not consistent, or some people have professions that are not, you may or may not have somebody there, but just trying to figure that out, especially if you have, as people get older and they're recognizing time is passing and you wanna.
And sometimes there's a tug of war between the
Yes.
two parties that wanna both have people.
Right.
And then, I have that every year, we renegotiate. I wish we could come up with like a schedule, because the stress of being in between, the diplomat in between my parents and my sister and figuring out who's going where,
And I catch it, it's a tug of war, because it often is a tug of war between who goes where when. And if you go to this one first, is the other one going to get mad? So when you look at this, it's no wonder that people's stress levels around the holidays tend to go through the roof. And that makes it just sort of not a healthy time of year. And I don't know that anybody put it in there, but not enough hours in the day to get it done. And
Too much good food. Is that on there? Too much special food,
Okay.
cookies, cakes, pies, all kinds of,
Okay.
that I normally can, just aren't there.
Too
And
much.
I can exercise some self-control, but holy cow,
And I'm
it's
gonna
like
add
being attacked.
too much alcohol.
I was gonna say,
Oh, wow. Oh, well.
Spice rum.
I don't know about that.
That's one of those sort of both stress inducer and stress reliever,
Right.
depending on how far you go.
And
so for some people, that's both of those things, if they have issues with them,
Mhm.
or if you don't, but other people you care about being.
Sure.
Well, absolutely right.
Yeah.
People with eating disorders or weight issues, whether it's one way or the other, and then that have issues around alcohol or substances, this is a really rough time of year.
Or even just food allergies, or,
Food
because there's
allergies,
a mix of all
If
kinds
you're
of.
making food, trying to make sure that you can get everybody, make sure that everybody's sort of food
Yeah.
needs are considered.
Yeah.
And just the thing to know is that especially around the holidays, there's a lot of alcohol and there's a lot of sugary things.
Yeah.
Both sugar and alcohol mess with our metabolisms big time. They can cause sugar spikes and then a crash. So then people are listless and they still have all this stuff to do, but you're in a sugar shock. And alcohol, while the stressors will make people say, and I also teach mental health first aid, and I love the thing, like, if it's been really awful, everybody's like, oh my God, I need a drink. And if it's gone great, let's have a It is like it is in our culture, the ubiquitous mood addresser. Good, bad, or indifferent. But for anxiety, just as a little tidbit, alcohol messes with it big time. It's a very short acting, it is an anxiety reliever. It will work very well for a couple hours, and then it wears off, and typically the anxiety spikes. So if the anxiety was here, use the alcohol, it'll go back up to here. So it tends to have a very vicious circle. It also messes with sleep. You'll fall asleep, but you can have a lot of trouble staying asleep. All right, so we have plenty of, you were actually wonderful in terms of identifying that. The other thing I want to bring up as a huge holiday issue is perfection. And I looked for a good graphic. Perfection should not be an issue. We should all be perfect. The house, somebody was like, house clean, the house should be perfect, the decorations, the food, God forbid you get the wrong cranberry sauce, the family, how you do it all. It's all supposed to be perfect because it's Christmas. Perfection is not a good goal. And, when I was looking up stuff on the internet for this, there are all of these memes like, strive for perfection, and strive for perfection and get neurotic, really is what they should say. Strive for perfection and fail every time. But then the other thing I would say, God forbid you do attain perfection. This is not a great achievement, because then people will hate you.
And they'll expect it every time.
Right.
So you gotta do it over and over.
Expect it always, in which case it is a total standard you cannot live up to, or they will really resent you for it. Now, you've all heard of, and I would do apologies, she's got some really good things, but Martha Stewart, right? And there's the magazine Martha Stewart Living. I saw, with some friends of mine, a magazine, honest to goodness, it was a published magazine, Is Martha Stewart Living? And in this magazine, it had like all of these spoof things, and it had one, a recipe for serve your guests homemade water. And it really picked up the ludicrousness of attempting to get to this perfection. Like, and
And all
She's got
personal
staff,
handling.
that get out her tape for her and trim her shrubs and.
thank you. Right. If you had a whole staff,
Martha Stewart.
right, and if we each had a whole staff that would do all the cooking and the decorating, you read like some of these places, how many people it takes to maintain it. And it's like, I don't know about you, but like it's me and my husband maintaining it. This doesn't qualify as a staff, and there are plenty of people that do it on their own because either their spouse doesn't want to hear about it, isn't interested, doesn't care, thinks it's, for whatever reason, it could be you and you. My mom used to joke, who's doing it? Me, myself, and I. All three of us will work on it. So,
Sometimes the dog watches while it's.
Yeah, the dog
is really good.
And
So
it's
for
good
City,
for
on my way
you.
to doing that.
So I want to kind of throw out that in Japan, there's an entire kind of, I don't know what term to use for it, but group of kind of art that is devoted to the beauty of imperfection. And when a pot is broken, they actually have some that they have pieced them together with like gold trim, and these are considered the ultimate because the imperfection in the object is what makes it beautiful. If it were perfect, it would not be as treasured. So, my next exercise for here, I want you to now think of some area of yourself that you think, or your holiday, right? The holiday world yourself that's imperfect. This should be a very short effort. And I want you to find a way to now turn that around and see how that imperfection is a wonderful thing. And okay, so take that imperfect and find the beauty in it. It's there. If nothing else, if it makes you laugh, this is a good thing because laughter is a tremendous stress reliever. So just the thought of that makes you laugh, that's good. And maybe you can't do that now. But that might be a really good thing on your drive home, okay? Where is there an imperfect? And where is the good in it? Where's the beauty in it? Maybe it makes you accessible. Maybe it enables your kids to say, I don't have to be perfect and it's okay. Maybe a friend sees themselves reflected in it. Maybe you just kind of let it go. You can do it. Trust me, there are ways. And if you couldn't find it with one perfect thing, you've got so many perfect things, or imperfect, find another imperfect thing and find the beauty in it. Okay? So, our next thing is we're going to have our final exercise and develop our own personal stress trigger and antidote list. So, this is why I gave you the cards, because you don't have to do this right now, but when we wrap this part, on one side of the card, you're going to put your top hot buttons. The worst things for you about stress and holidays. And on the flip side, you're going to put down some of your favorite, and you might learn something from somebody else, some stress antidotes. And when you feel the stress going up, right, you do the breathing, and then you start flipping that card around, even if just in your head. I have an antidote for this, okay? So, stress antidotes. I'm going to put this up here, because these are our ickies. And it's going to be a little bit behind. And I can do 2 pages of stress antidotes if that works. So let's start thinking about what are things that help you feel calm and happy. And I'll tell you, these will fall into several very specific categories. So think across all of them. People that help you feel calm and stress-free. Activities, things you can do. Environmental things. Work-related. Believe it or not, work can be an anti-stressor. Some things in work. Community. And under community, that could be like any group you belong to, friends you've got in the community. Spiritual. So spiritual things that are stress reducers. And financial. Because that can actually, there are some financial strategies that are stress reducers. And I will start you off with one of my number ones. So this is going to be our list of antidotes. And my number one is taking a walk. And I realized, especially with my husband, because often I only get to walk at night after it's dark, and when I'm with him, and I've tried taking my dog, but at 28 pounds doesn't do the same thing. I just feel safer and calmer, and it's like each step I get calmer. And just by the way, there are some biorhythm things that anything rhythmic, like just walking, if you keep the same pace, actually will reduce stress. It's just kind of a biofeedback thing. That I think it's why people pace. It's that bump, bump, bump. It's kind of like a drum beat or a heartbeat. So, you know, kind of walking. So, how about you all? What are some of your stress relievers? Things that make you happy. These are things you pull. Okay, you had one before. And I'm not using names.
It doesn't really tie into any of your list, but we celebrate the 12 days of Christmas. So it's not all on one day. If something doesn't get done on day one, we can do it on day two. We have another 10 days after that to get it done.
Okay, actually, that is an antidote. You spread it out. If you spread it out, that is a very good antidote.
That's what I like about Advent. It wakes, oh, Christmas is coming?
That's all right. What are some of your other things that are relaxing for you? Because these are really different for different people. I'll give you a very different one. Bubble baths. They don't relax me. I'll get in a bubble bath and all I do is make another list in my head what I could or should be doing at that time. I was saying that to my brother one time and he said, I love bubble baths. They relax me. And I had to confront my own gender stereotypes that this is a guy. But it works for him. So I'm going to say if it works for you, it is the right stress reliever. So I'll put bubble baths or, you know, baths.
That is if no one's on the other side of the door asking you to find something for them while you're in the bubble bath.
Okay, this is why what works for one person does not work for somebody else.
And you just illustrated another stressor for me, which is broken or missing tools, like your pen or my pen that isn't working right. And you get more and more frustrated and you want to throw it across the room. But there's a solution. You can be innovative.
Somebody was telling me they went out to decorate with the lights or something, and every single, like the first 3 strands they plugged in. He's like, I got out the bin. He's like, you know, Chrissy was out at me about hanging the lights. He got out the bin, and first 3 strands I plugged in were dead. He's like,
You know what? That just prompted one for me. Ask for help.
Ask for help. But I said, but also I like to be creative. You know, if I need this tool and I can't find it, I'm going to find something else to get the job done and not get focused on I have to have this tool. Now, Howard's going to say, yes, you do get focused on that.
All right, I'm going to capture that. Get a plan B. Plan A didn't work. Come up with a plan B. Yeah.
But finding some kind of work that you can focus on that you get absorbed in, that you need to do, like choir for Sunday service. You know, you have to practice, you have to pay attention to that. You can't think about anything else while you're doing it. Just focus. Going for a hike in the woods if you're not walking on the street. Yard work is good. I get absorbed in raking or cutting wood.
well, it's hard to really be thinking about too many things when you're like sweating.
Yeah, because you're already doing something. You
Well,
know,
and also too, you feel like you're accomplishing something.
yes.
I'm a list maker, and I feel like, and one of the ways in which, I mean, it would work or in life, but one of the ways in which I'm a planner, I'm very much a planner, and so chaos is my biggest stress. Chaos of any sort is my biggest stressor, where I cannot sort of, I feel like I can't get enough of it done. People are sabotaging what I need to get done, you know. So if I can make a list and lay out a plan that I can go, okay, look at it, it is all going to fit. It is all going to fit. I can do these things this weekend. I can do these things this weekend. It is going to fit. It is going to get done. It's not going to be a train wreck. And then also when you look at it, you're like, do I really need to be doing, you know, scrap that, scrap that, scrap that. You're like, you know, the triage, you know. But it's a weird thing because sometimes trying to do relaxing things when I have a million things to get done does the opposite. Because I'm sitting there going like, oh my God, like, yeah, I'm sitting there in the bubble bath going like, oh my gosh, I gotta send that email to so-and-so, you know, like, whereas if you just sit there and bang out your list, sometimes you're like, okay, now that's...
You are cranking out a lot of really good antidote strategies. Getting a plan B. Finding a diversion activity that uses your concentration and distracts you. Make a list, a doable plan. Triage, decide what to skip or eliminate. I'm going to actually kind of put a little star there.
Do we really need to make all those loaves of bread from scratch when Costco has perfectly good, you know? Sometimes you have to kind of say, okay, you spend about 12 hours a week baking. You don't need to do all
What to
that.
skip, what to eliminate. Homemade water being top of the list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they
I like that.
that
Homemade water's
include like
good.
basic tasks on them? That
Oh, so you get the satisfaction of crossing them
cross
off?
them out and get a sense of like momentum
And use a
progress.
festive
Yeah.
pen?
Yeah.
Wake up. Okay, I did.
Like brush teeth.
Check.
Done it. Nailed it.
So
Get
that's your
dressed.
accomplishment.
Take that off.
And
Are
you
you
know
laughing
what?
at me? Because
That
that's
can-
what I do.
I totally do that.
Like, get up in the morning, check, did it! All right. Okay, so if we think across, so I want you to, again, to try to consider across, so do we have how about people? We've got some activities. What are some people, so I want to kind of hit across them, people, activities, environmental, work-related, community, spiritual, financial. I want to try to hit a whole bunch of types, because sometimes one, you cannot get it out of that hat. You know it's in that hat, you cannot pull it out of the hat. So what are some?
Laughing about all this kind of stuff with other people, because you're like, oh, your family's psycho too, it's not just me. Your kids are not perfect, really?
I'm already gonna put on my agendas for next year, I'm just gonna write, how's the cranberry sauce? I'm gonna text you next Thanksgiving. You have to laugh about it.
No, I mean, certainly, like, holidays or anything, nice to know that, like, I'm not the only falling down on the job.
You know what? That's right. Spending time with other people, that feeling of solidarity that you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
Solidarity and commonality.
I think another thing, is I try really hard to think I feel blessed that really, truly on both sides of my family, they're not crazy gift givers. There's not the, you gotta do these big things. But still, even if you're doing, I'm talking money-wise, even as a smart, to try to be thoughtful and to try to, think about the person. And some years I have ideas and other years I just don't. And I get frustrated because I want to be thoughtful and I do a lot of research. And, if you've got nieces and nephews of a certain age, and we both have teenagers here, it gets really, really hard. And so I have to give myself permission to say, you work hard to come up with ideas, let it go. You're going to give this, it's a bust or a good thing, and it's okay.
Let it go.
The idea of that you're going to nail the idea that somebody has, and sometimes even when you ask, you don't get. But it's really important to me to try to be thoughtful, but sometimes I really just don't have, and if it's me, myself, and I, coming up with the ideas most of the time.
One of the things that happened with us that was a great relief was my older brother had 3 sons.
Yeah.
And we tried to get them some kind of gift when they were younger.
Yeah.
They're adults now, we don't do that. But when they were younger, and all the time, I don't know if we ever
Every year.
got them something that they actually wanted.
It was the wrong
usually
size, the
some kind
wrong
of clothing
color.
thing, or not the style what they wear in the Twin Cities, and then so we got them gift cards, didn't we?
Gift card. We started giving the kids gift cards,
Yeah.
and at first
And
I
they
thought
loved
it
it.
seemed so cold. Big hit,
Yeah.
big hit.
Because then they had money that they could
And
go
I was
buy their
like-
own thing, and it was a big deal for them, and it was so much easier for us. We said, why didn't we think of this like 8 years ago?
Because you have to let some stuff go,
Yeah. We're trying to
including
buy
the
stuff, Janine
ideal
especially.
of getting the perfect present for each person.
Well, one thing we did when we took ours, we're gonna have the 12 days of Christmas.
Mhm.
And Howard said, we just got Howard. How can we afford 12 days of Christmas? I said, that's because you open one present each day.
But that's still
And
12
some
presents.
days, it'll be something that's absolutely spectacular, and you say, how did they know that? And the other day, it'll be like, Howard's mom always gave him, did I tell him?
Sure.
New underwear every Christmas.
Right.
Someday, that'll be what you unwrap.
It's not going to never be
A lot of
better.
times we got stuff that we needed because, well,
Yeah.
you need socks.
Yeah.
There you go.
No,
I
big
love
on
fun
giving
socks.
underwear.
That's like my go-to. I don't know what to give you. I'm going to give you fun socks to kids.
I think
Those
socks
my
are
fun
actually,
socks.
yeah, right, see, green socks, yeah. They wear out, they're very easy to size, it's like 5 to 11. You can do this. All right, what are some other strategies?
Music,
Music.
appropriate music. Now, that's
Good
gonna vary from
music
person to
that makes you
person. Some
happy,
people
not
love,
music that makes you grind your teeth.
Holly Jolly Christmas, but we're more classic.
Right.
Yeah.
So, music is a great one. I have to tell you, I saw a thing, I forget it was someone's email or whatever today. I can't stand all this holiday music, it's getting me crazy. Music makes me depressed. I want to emphasize that antidotes are incredibly specific. Just like the antidote to one poison will not work on another. What works for you as an antidote may be it will be toxic to somebody else. So just keep in mind, these are all incredibly personal, what works. Okay, some more. I suspect you all know. So when you're really stressed, what do you tend to do that makes you feel better? Besides drinking, we're not gonna allow that one on the list.
I mean, getting together with a friend. You know, crowds kind of drive me nuts, but getting together with a friend, you know, for either the purpose of sitting around a fire and drinking beer, or playing sports, or going for, you know, monitoring a trail on the land trust, going off for a walk in the woods, you know, with another person, or maybe two, but it starts to get too many. You know, my tolerances.
This starts to get into the things that tend to fall off the map as we deal with holiday stress and the lists and the stuff that has to happen. Often, people begin to let slide the things that are actually their strongest antidotes. And that's part of what messes with us at the holidays. Like spending time with friends, just time with friends, just stopping all of it. You're not gonna shop, you're not gonna clean the house, you're not gonna cook, you're gonna hang out with a friend, is extraordinarily restorative to many people, and yet it's often a fatality of holiday stress. Okay, think of some of the other things that are really helpful that tend to bite the bullet, or bite the dust. What's wrong? If you bite the dust when you're so busy doing all this stuff.
I think like fun, like festive holiday things that you had to do nothing to do with them. You just show up and enjoy it. Like attending something that all you gotta do is get yourself there.
Right.
You know, maybe you bought a ticket for something, right? That sometimes you're like, you know, I don't know, things that are just very, I don't know, festive and joyful and nice and remind you like that this is supposed to be a happy time of year.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That you're like, oh, well, I could go to that concert, except that I have to go do this shopping. You know,
Mhm.
you're like, no, go to the concert.
Fun that requires no prep. Just, and fun is something that kids talk about all the time, and adults sometimes let slide. And fun is not to be underrated. What's fun? Okay. I'm gonna throw a couple in there that I think are especially important too. Meditation, which sounds like doing nothing, or yoga. And this is one that I know for me, I've got a daily yoga practice, and what I realize is I get stressed and busy at the holidays, and what I noticed was I was starting to skip taking those walks, and I didn't have time to do my yoga in the morning, and when that happened, I noticed my stress was worse, my sleep was worse, everything kind of went a bit downhill. So the hardest thing for me is to actually set aside the time to do things that are for my wellness, and say, I gotta do this. And I have been known to put it on my list. Yoga. Actually, I get mocked by my family because I have to put relax on the list, or it doesn't happen. Read
a book.
I'm going to put reading on here. For some people, reading is very
Who's got
relaxing.
time?
Reading, but if sitting down and enjoying a good book is something that helps you, make the time to do it. And like if you're ever thinking, I don't have time to do this, remember early in the presentation I said stress will screw with your body and your emotions. It can contribute to anxiety and depression and physical illness. If you don't have time to do something for wellness, ask yourself, would I find the time today to visit the doctor? And if you know that you would be able to put aside the hour or whatever it is, if you've got a doctor that sees you fast, to see your doctor, then you do have time to do something for your own well-being. And it's just, we don't think that way. We don't think, because that's prevention. But if you can't find time to do any of your antidote stuff, you need to kind of move something aside, because your body will make the time for you. All right.
It's like the mask on the airplane.
Yeah, yeah. And nobody said it, but I'm going to put it on here. Exercise. Exercise is incredibly good. It releases endorphins, which are those feel-good hormones.
Going for hikes and walks.
Going for hikes, exercise, any kind of exercise. And just by the way, it's just, I always read this kind of research. 15 minutes will do it. A 15-minute walk. Put the shoes on, get outside and just take a plain old 15-minute walk. Forget the Fitbit, gotta do whatever. 15 minutes does it. It's good cardiac, it's good for stress reduction. So if you can swing 15 minutes, just do 15 minutes. If it means you have to go shopping, say, okay, I'm going to do a lap around the parking lot. And you may look a little odd, but do a lap around the parking lot. If you're at work, find the farthest bathroom you can get to and maybe walk there many times and you can get your 15 minutes. But try to get 15 minutes unbroken. Anything else?
Well, I'm not just saying this was for immature, but I've been trying to pray more. It's been a hot mess, I will admit. So like, sometimes it's hard to know how to pray or what to pray or how to, and so I found a site that had some beautiful prayers that for different things, and one of them was stress, not specifically related to the holidays, but just, in general. And it was really helpful to have some guidance on maybe how to go about that. And it's not like it's going to take a ton of time when you worry that you're not going to do it. Just like, just being able to say that in the morning and be like, okay, I'm asking for whatever I'm asking for, and I said I'm getting up now and I'm starting my day. It's somewhat helpful, but I struggle with it. It's not something that comes naturally to me.
Antidotes are not always easy to implement.
Well,
But prayer is, again, hate to say this, but again, it's research-based, that prayer is very effective as a stress reducer. So, and there are ways that, it's like there's a little line going up there. But there are books, there are websites, going to church, attending church services. Takes time, but for a lot of people, they leave feeling better. Anything that at the end of it you feel better goes on the stress antidote list.
I think particularly sometimes prayers of gratitude.
Yes.
Like I have like a weird kind of ritual I do with communion where we're praying during, silent individual prayer during communion where with the bread, I say my thank yous, and with the cup, I say my pleases. But I always leave with the thank yous, right? And I find that sometimes just going through the exercise of enumerating the things that I am grateful for, kind of, especially doing that first, like shifts my thinking. I have a sign in my house, my kitchen, that says practice gratitude. Like, and all these things that you're stressed about, whatever, like none of this matters.
Right.
Nothing matters. What matters? Is everybody in your family healthy today? Do you have a job? I mean, the world did not come to an end. You're like, okay, my kid's not doing well in school, but he's not doing drugs, so that's good. Sometimes
I have a whole slide on that. That is so incredibly wonderful and important. And the last thing I want to put in here, because then we're going to get to sort of the whole thing. I want to put, okay, I'm out of space there. Sleep. Sleep is a grand antidote. And we tend to, when we're like, there's not enough hours in the day, I don't have time for this. Sleep is often a catalyst of stress, because when people are stressed, they don't sleep as well, they don't sleep, period. And that's a problem. And the average person needs between 7 and 9 hours of sleep every night.
It's not just kids.
Everybody. And with adequate sleep, our brains actually reboot. There's all kinds of fun stuff. You ever want to read up on what happens physiologically when you sleep? It's great fun. It's another presentation. But sleep is restorative. Sleep is a stress buster of the first order. So making sure you get enough sleep. And again, we might have someday a whole thing on good sleep, because there's something called sleep hygiene, getting good sleep habits so that you get enough sleep. And then I had, I know what button I pushed before. Okay.
The sleep button.
the sleep, thank you. That was good, the sleep button. And I actually put up there, let it go. And sleep, meditation, reading, baths, whatever, are all important stress busters. All right. And then the next one, human connection and gratitude. Thank you. And I'm not mentioning names because this is being taped and I may not want it. And it was almost like what you said. Close your eyes and list the things you can be grateful about, small or big. Do you have a safe place to live? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have fresh water coming out of your tap? Is your home heated? I mean, just there, if you can say yes to those, and I'm not talking about heated enough, because some of us put the thermostat down to be thrifty, but you have heat in your house, water on the tap, a refrigerator or pantry with some food. You are now ahead of a stunning portion of humanity that does not have a safe place to live. And here where we live, we're in a very safe community. Like when I said before I walk at night, okay, I have to keep my eyes out for the occasional bear, coyote, whatever, but it is a safe community. I can walk in my neighborhood safely. That is something a whole lot of humanity is not able to say, so we can be really grateful for that. The sun is shining, and the other thing that I wanted to mention is human connection. So each time you connect with another human being, it's actually called dosing. You give yourself a dose of an antidote to stress, depression, and anxiety. It can be as simple as saying hi to the grumpy cashier, and I was talking about this with someone the other day, that there's a cashier we both noted that is seriously persistently grumpy. And I don't know if you're willing to share your kind of what happened.
She's up at Stop and Shop, and she sits.
Don't get too detailed.
She's lovely. And
But grumpy.
she has a collection of things that she puts on her blouse there. So we decided to give her one day, just out of the blue, because we get a kick out of being in her checkout line. Actually, go specifically to her checkout line, and she liked the little pin that we gave her because she collects them, and it just was a nice interaction. But
And you felt better after you did
yes,
that.
absolutely.
So
Because now every time I see her, she's got the little pin, you know.
So doing something like that, making that positive connection is a twofer. So if you smile at a random stranger, I was joking with Kent that they think you're not from Connecticut, but let's say you just smile at a random, which I was not right. So you smile at a random stranger, you wave at someone, you say hi to the cashier, you thank the delivery person. If you go out of your way to make those tiny connections, say hi, chat to the person behind you on the interminably long line. Those are human connections that are really twofers because you will get benefit from that. Humans connecting to other people nurtures our souls, which is AKA stress relievers. So when you do that, that person can go home feeling better, you're going to feel better, and don't miss those. And when I think about those random little bits of joy, many years ago, my daughter Kira was a little kid. She was about yay big. We were still living on Long Island then, I think. And so we were on this long line in like a grocery, like a vegetable place. And she's just, because she's like a little kind of bop around, and she starts singing a little Christmas song. And when we got up to the register, the person before us turned around and handed her, I think it might have been a $5 bill, and he said, "You have brought me more joy today than I think I've seen all week."
Oh, that's so nice.
Now, why that's a twofer, clearly her doing that little bit of singing in public made him incredibly happy, floored her, and to this day makes me feel happy. And when I find myself moved to whistle or to say hi and thank you, or to wish a Merry Christmas, or try to be a little politically correct, a happy holiday to somebody, I've noticed I feel better every single time. It doses you. So think of it, each time you do those tiny little, and I don't want to call them random acts of kindness, those touches, those connections to other human beings, you are dosing yourself with a little antidote. Little mini doses. Mini doses add up. Okay. So that's the whole benefit of connection. So now we're at the identifying our own personal antidotes. So holidays, we've established holidays can wear us down financially, emotionally, physically, mentally, but this is damage control. So this is where you take out that little card, and I'm going to ask each of you on one side to put some of your own personally top of the list hot buttons and triggers, because this is going to help you notice them when they happen. You'll be like, 2-alarm fire, 3-alarm fire. That was one of my 2 alarms, right? And then on the flip side of the card, and in case it helps prompt, I've got them up there. I've got some of the antidotes. And it might be something you didn't even think to mention out loud, or we're awkward mentioning out loud. Like most of you at least have gotten a lot done. You can certainly do this more at home, but this gives you a good start, and I don't want to stress you into thinking you got right most of it. All right, and then I got the questions, but I want to cover a couple of because of what I've done for much of my life, just to mention that whether it's you or someone you know, sometimes all the self-help in the world, all the self-care doesn't work, and a person begins to really move from like that yellow stress zone to the red zone. And if this is you or somebody else and you're thinking, am I overwhelmed? Is my loved one okay? The thing that I would want to emphasize, how do you know when someone's tipped off center enough to be a cause for concern? And it's all about change. And the change would be, whether it's anxiety, depression, or physical problems, it's pretty much the more or less. Someone who starts sleeping a lot more or can't sleep, eating more, not eating anymore, growing distant or needy, a change in work habit or experience, like the person who used to always be punctual and all of a sudden they're never there. They don't have enjoyment like they used to love to go walking, running, playing cards, whatever it is, and all of a sudden they never want to do any of this stuff anymore. Having trouble focusing, if they're talking about feeling overwhelmed, and they say this a lot, and smoking or drinking a lot more. And smoking for people who are smokers, when they're like, used to have an occasional cigarette and all of a sudden they're just puffing through them, or drinking a lot more. This is one to kind of call in a professional, and I just kind of had to throw that out there that, when is self-care not enough? And I think it's helpful to know that there are those, this is really, to me, pretty simple. When you see someone giving a real change. Some people are always quiet, so if they're quiet, like, this is them. Some people are always buzzing and kind of hyper, that's them. When the hyper person all of a sudden has no energy, that's when you would start to pay attention. So really any dramatic change from the normal. So that was my little infomercial there in the middle. So I just wanted to go back because I want to leave a moment for questions if they are. So what we have theoretically learned, how to identify what might push our buttons or be our stress triggers. There. What are personal strategies that I'm kind of calling antidotes to counter them, which I think we put there. Okay. Personal strategies, and to remember that gratitude, kindness, and connection to others are all reliable mood boosters, and breathing. Free, always available. And I talk to people who need medication or things like that to do this. To me, it's like, you've always got breathing with you. It takes place immediately. Time from dose to impact, like 0. Readily available, you can do it anywhere, anytime. You can do this if you're having trouble falling asleep, if you're stressed out with your kids, if you're on the line at the store and you start to freak out a little bit, the breathing always works. And that's kind of basically it. So I would say, really thank you. I was thinking if nobody showed up, this is going to be a very difficult presentation since I rely on people doing stuff. But do you have any questions?
Just another thing that takes more planning than breathing. Mm-hmm. Breathing is great because it is pretty much, you can do it forever, but a short walk. You mentioned that, but walking I think is one of the best helpful things.
Walking is wonderful. The reason I put it as kind of one of the things is because I know someone, a family member of mine, with so many physical problems that walking is a real problem. Basically, it's painful, and for them, they need to do like aqua therapy. They need to be in a pool. Like if someone's got really bad rheumatoid arthritis, sometimes walking, you can't always fit it in. You can always fit in breathing. Because really, if you don't fit in
I
breathing,
really should.
then the stress becomes less of an issue. Any other questions or thoughts?
Also, just being outside is good. Like, I noticed that when I moved to Rochester for college, the first semester I was there was like, I don't know, it was one of the lower percentages of sunny days for there, and already there, Rochester has fewer sunny days than Connecticut by many, many.
Yeah.
So that's the first time I realized that like exposure to sunlight and
Yeah.
grabbing
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
really important.
Also, sometimes pets are good, like I mean, especially dogs, they have to be walked, like they drag us out,
Yeah.
even though we're like, oh my gosh,
And even if you just stand there and watch your dog,
right.
you're outdoors.
I mean,
It does.
also too, like dogs are really particularly like they're in the moment kind of creatures, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so you're like, wow, you know, they're very much sort of, there's a page to be taken out of that book. Sort of like, hey, in this moment, everything in my life is okay, therefore I'm okay. Like, they don't really think about what happened yesterday. They don't really think about what's happening tomorrow. They're like, hey, this couch is pretty good. This person's petting me.
Yep.
I'm good. I'm all good.
They are masters of being in the moment.
In the moment.
And when they talk about meditation, it's all about being in the moment. Oh, I forgot to mention one, it's a very weird strategy because like when I was talking about different things, aromatherapy works for some people. And so here's a weird thing that can be really helpful. Take a cold orange, roll it in your hands, kind of pressing down on it. And it does, and people who actually have trauma history and PTSD can use this. It puts you into the moment. You feel the orange. You smell the orange. And then you can like smell the orange and you can breathe into your hands and the smell of the orange oil on your hands and just that breathing in is incredibly centering. It's the kind of thing dogs do. Naturally, humans have to kind of work at it. But just rolling an orange, a cold orange, feel that it's cold. Where does it feel cold against your hand? Where does your hand feel warm? So just rolling an orange. And it's orange because they're round, and then they will fragrance your hands. So they're kind of multi-sensory. There are lots of those little tricks. Petting dogs is shown to reduce blood pressure. My dog has really tried to promote this. Other thoughts or questions?
Well, another one that's like the orange is listening to a bell or a tone and listening as it fades.
Mm-hmm.
When does it actually stop?
Yeah, that's a little
Because
existential,
I
but
have
it's
ringing in my ears, so it never really stops.
in some kinds of meditation and yoga, they have Tibetan singing bowls, and they roll this little, and I've seen professionals do this, and it's really cool. And you just kind of zone out listening to, but I could see if I was in the wrong space, it would just like annoy me. So it's, and some of these, it's why I want you to have a list on your card. They're going to work sometimes, and other times you either won't have time or you can't do them. You need a toolkit. You know, you were mentioning not having the right tool. The deeper your toolkit of stress relievers and antidotes is, the better you're going to be, because, I mean, I ran out of space here for some of the stressors, and the holidays are going to load them on. You want a deep toolkit to bring today. More tools. If one's not available, one doesn't work, pull out the next one. Any other thoughts or questions? Otherwise, thank you for being here tonight. I hope you will be less stressed, that you'll be less stressed and find yourself better able to cope with the stress of the holidays.